Hello, my name's Christina. I work for the library and I've been really missing you guys already. I can't even imagine what the next few weeks are going to be like. And when I'm stressed or if I just haven't doodled in about 48 hours, my very favorite thing in the world to do is doodle. So I thought today we could doodle together. The first step is getting your supplies together and getting a little space cleared off for yourself. If you have somewhere with some natural light is good for you, for plants, and for drawing. So pick a spot that's your favorite spot, get some water, surround yourself with things that make you happy. Particularly now, you probably feel maybe a little out of control of your environment. So creating a small little environment that you can control is itself relaxing. Another thing you want to gather is some pens. If you have a favorite pen, I have a variety of favorite pens and pens that I'm partial to. One is this Papermate Flare or these Micron pens, but you can use a ballpoint pen. You can use any kind of pen. Also paper. If you have full-size paper, you might want to cut it down. Something smaller is usually more manageable. If you have cardstock, that's kind of nice as well because it'll just be a little more stable for you. All right, so I think today we're going to focus on patterns. Patterns are very soothing to me because it's an easy way to create order, and there's a lot to play with there, and they look so good when they're finished. So the way I start a pattern is I think about what do I want to draw maybe thousands of times. So a very good place to start would be circles. You can do an open circle. You could do a closed, like filled in circle. And then you can also do more of a chaotic pattern or more of a steady pattern. I'm going to start with a steady pattern. Here, I'll show you. The trick to setting up a nice steady pattern is trying to get that even spacing going. And fortunately, with computers now, if you wanted exactly a precise even spacing, you could do that pretty easy on a computer. So if you're going to bother doing it by hand, a little bit of variation is actually really nice. So also I want to say right off the bat, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. And some people are more comfortable with a more structured class, and other people are more okay to experiment. I was always the kind of kid that could follow directions up to a point and then always had to somehow make it my own. I couldn't bring myself to just replicate the demo. So when I lead classes in person, I like to encourage that experimentation. So by all means, feel free to doodle with us and do whatever you feel like. And if something that I say strikes your fancy, incorporate it. And if it doesn't, you can just do your own thing. I won't even know unless you share it, which would be fantastic. Anyone who wants to share their doodles, post a photo in the comments. I would love to see them. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to post those in the comments as well. I will try to answer as many as I can, as best as I can. And if I do more videos, I might even address your question at the beginning of my next video. So I've been just continuing to draw a steady stream of dots. The trick with the next row, if you're trying to get nice even, this is one of my very favorite things to doodle. It's nice even polka dots, and you're doing, each row has even spacing, and I go in a row, But then when you start the next row, you're kind of finding that midpoint and drawing it evenly spaced up. So you're making these little triangles or like a little diamond shape. And so then you get these nice rows this way and these nice rows this way. And it's like very, very happy like polka dots, but also incredibly ordered and regimented. Those are one of my favorites to draw. But next up, I'm going to show you what to do. Say you draw one and you go, oh geez, that's completely not, there's no way to like fix that and keep this regimented pattern. That's okay. What you do is you start drawing them more haphazardly. And the trick there is you're trying to really do the opposite. You don't want too even of spacing. You want to start getting more put one like really far away, put one close to one that you just drew. And, you know, an uneven pattern can be just as soothing as an even pattern, because that's really what you're going to find more in like a natural environment. Like when you think about like vines or leaves, like anything that has a repeated element that you find in nature, they're usually not quite so even. They're usually either the spacing is various or the size. You can play with the scale too, so let's do that next. I'm going to start to get bigger as I go out. You know, and see what that does to the pattern. So variations in sizes and locations are a fun way to play with a pattern. It's a way to take a mistake and make it, you know, maybe even more beautiful than your original idea. That's another thing I love about doodling is it's really low stakes because it's just a piece of paper, and that experimentation leads to some of the very best ideas. Another thing I love about doodling is how meditative it is, and it's a nice way to think about things more deeply and maybe let myself sit with ideas that are uncomfortable and not be so quick to like shut it down or push it out of my way because I have to do something. It's an excuse to give myself time to just unwind a little. It's funny how as an adult you need those excuses. I've been thinking about this a lot, how, you know, when you're a kid you don't worry about wasting time, and this idea of anything that you're not putting into some sort of end product or, you know, this adult idea of production, that anything that isn't in service of some predetermined end result is a waste, and that's not really a natural way of thinking. Like no child thinks that way, and it's sort of nice to take a step back and reevaluate, okay, you know, what am I doing and why? And doodling has always been a quick way to get myself in that different headspace, thinking about time a little bit differently, thinking about my actions a little bit differently, thinking about value a little bit differently. So those kind of thoughts are really nice to have while I'm doodling because my hands are busy. So it takes what could be maybe an anxious train of thought and makes it, you know, more of a meditation. All right, so here's my little soda pop bubbles with a nice little band of organized bubbles down at the bottom. So that's a really fun pattern. You can't go wrong with circles. But let's try a new pattern. Let's see. We've got O's. Let's try X's. So X's are kind of fun. It reminds me of like cross stitch or pixels. You think about a pixelated image. You could map it out with X's. It's weird too because you can see already I'm getting kind of a movement across the page that is like an Etch-a-Sketch or something, you know, like this weird like dirt, 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 dirt. So that's kind of fun, like a different way to move across the page and still, you know, it's like smoke or like, you know, this line that's like growing and expanding and contracting in a weird way, but still, you know, still keeping this grid. That's really like the biggest thing of doodling too, is realizing how everything can either be on a grid or you're like getting rid of this grid, or you're I don't know, maybe it would just be like an alternate grid, but thinking about it in terms of, you know, why is my first instinct always to like keep things in these tight little in these grids? Like my very first doodles are always more grid based, and the longer I doodle, the more it gets like, oh, well, I don't really, why am I putting everything so even? So here's, you can see it really is like a cross stitch pattern, so that could be really fun to play with if you like to do a lot of cross stitch and you use other people's patterns. Like, consider doodling your own pattern and then embroidering that. Or I've found websites online that will take an image and break it into pixels for you for either quilting or cross stitch, and there's lots of fun things to do then with that pixelated image. You can take it down to like, you say, oh, you know, I want it 5 colors. So you take a full color image and you break it down into like 5 main colors, and it's all pixelated. I did a bulletin board at Richfield with minions, and I used a cross stitch website to pixelate an image and then use those dots to translate the image, you know, huge. So you can see I'm getting like almost like a little map or something, like an aerial map, or like or like a video game. Maybe it would be like the levels you could hop through. And you can see something like immediately what catches my eye of this one is somehow this X has like this weirdly long leg. But that's now to me the most interesting part of the drawing, so I might try to, you know, push that. You know, it's one thing to look at something, oh, that's not what I intended, that's a mistake, but it could be, oh, that's not what I intended, like that's maybe the most interesting thing on this page. Now, what does that look like then when now I'm getting these little crosses instead of X's. So that's kind of fun. Maybe it's you know, have you seen those like scanned images where they play with the scanner, like if it's a stick scanner and so you can move it around more freely, and you like stretch it and reconfigure it. It's like glitch art, they call it. Some of the most ordinary images can become like so transcendently beautiful by just stretching components of it. All of a sudden it looks like a sci-fi movie, or just gives it this strange atmosphere. Even this, I'm not stretching it the way I wish I was. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I do, yeah, even more. So, you know, when you decide to kind of go off, you know, modify the pattern, it's like if I took like a blur tool, or if it was on fabric and I just pulled it. And that's the thing about pattern, is variation is one of your most important tools when you're creating a pattern. So, you know, you don't, especially in the doodle, while you're doodling, don't be afraid to like play with that. That's the whole point. How are you guys doing? It's got like a weird vector. I do that a lot, where the first half of my doodle and the second half are almost different doodles. Sometimes I'll cut them apart and reassemble them. If I do that with some of these, if I cut them apart and collage them, I'll post it for you guys. All right, let's see. What's a good third thing? Let's do triangles. I love triangles. I'm going to connect my triangles. This is probably a shape you've been seeing a lot. Designers are kind of in love with these triangles right now. They're a type of fractal, which is the whole wormhole you can fall down if you're in need of something nerdy to research. This type of fractal they use to plot like mountain ranges. So it's just a series of connected triangles. It's just triangles that are sharing sides. Because a lot of nature is a repeated form that, you know, no two repeats are exactly alike, but they all fall within certain parameters. So it's not totally chaotic, but it's not totally ordered. And that's what fractals is studying, is like what does natural variation look like? Infinite, you know, variation, but within these parameters instead of identical copies. It's really beautiful results, especially, you know, when you multiply it by thousands of units. It's incredibly soothing to me because it's like nature. It's like leaves, you know. Each tree has a different type of leaf, but even each leaf is different within its own really strict parameters. So you know, in a lot of ways, that's what daily tasks are like, is even a really repetitive day where you have the schedule is the same as the day before and as tomorrow. You're going to have all of these infinite little variations. You never live exactly the same day twice. So, I don't know. It can be maddening, sure, but it can also be very soothing. Like that's, you know, there's something really beautiful about routine and finding ways to tweak your routine and get it to a routine that you enjoy, and finding the joy even in mundane aspects of your daily life. So this is really, really fun for me because it feels almost like it could be three-dimensional, like peaks and valleys. Like I want to just like fold the paper that way, even though actual paper doesn't quite fold that way. You actually have to like cut pieces out and glue them together to get any real dimension. But you know, it just really seems to suggest dimension in a way that is exciting to me. And it's really easy to play with the parameters and get it to feel cohesive still because, you know, each shape grows off the last one. So hopefully by now, if you have been doodling along with me, or honestly even just watching, you might have noticed around the 15-minute mark that your whole mind just sort of like relaxed. And that's really the very best part of doodling is, you know, letting that anxiety just like melt away. Just sort of expand and then dissipate. All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and stop there. I will let you keep going with whichever pattern you prefer or a totally different one. Please share them with me in the comments, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. I hope this was relaxing. I hope this was something really enjoyable for you. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you guys so much.